Okay, we're now going to go into the next session, which is one of my favorites, high-speed rail around the world. And this gives us an opportunity to really see how extensive this already is around the world and how many countries have it and where it is and the kind of level of high-speed rail that the rest of the world has been enjoying literally since 1964 in Japan. So that's how far behind we are. And so now we are beginning to catch up. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Philippe Leron. He's with UIC in Paris, which is kind of the mothership of high-speed rail. And it was a UIC conference that I attended back in 2008, which is actually what inspired us to start this association and start promoting it here in America. So with that, please welcome Philippe Leron.
Thank you, Andy. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to make a presentation of the current operations and development agenda. Yeah, very good. Thank you. So all what I've heard is going to has ring bells. So I'm going to illustrate what's going on in the rest of the world, and it's going fast, high speed. Okay, first, to bring maybe some figures back, I put the miles indication. The length of the global high-speed network in miles, you know, it's quite impressive because it's almost 40,000 miles overall. And you see the expansion. For the last 4 years, we saw an increase of 20% of this length of the network. You see, it started, you know, as it was said earlier today, in Japan in '64, soon followed by Italy, France, Spain, so Europe. But then China came, you know, in the 2008, and you can see that most of the network today, I put some dotted line on the first line because the figure will not wide enough, but 25,000 miles, it's only in China. So that's quite impressive. And you can see the rest of the country. So Europe is following second, and then the rest of the world is growing. Okay, so this length of infrastructure means also a ridership which is at this scale, 680 billion passenger mile. I made the translation, you know, and for China only, it's 300 billion passenger mile. And earlier, I told you they started late. So you can see the ridership, the success of this mobility. Okay, let's start just a quick tour around the world. I'll start with Asia. So Asia, we have in commercial operation today, 28,000 miles. Most of it is in China, but you know, there is a lot under construction. Almost 10,000 miles is currently under construction. It's not plan or development, it's under construction. It's going to be delivered, so it's going to add more and make a gap even bigger. So the circle below show you, you know, the distribution among the countries, among the continents, between Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But most of it, it's Asia Pacifica. Okay, so as I said, and the map that was shown by Andy earlier, is speaking by itself. You know, China is a huge country. They took the decision to build this high-speed rail network, and it's quite impressive. And what's impressive also is what they are currently building. So historically, Japan got also the first network, but the scale is different. But the technology is there, reliable, and still being expanded. And a third country also is Korea, which is a smaller country, but also developing very fast. So, you know, one point also is the speed. You have different countries, different geography, but also different speed of your according to the country. So you see This according to China has a higher speed, but Japan, the increase of speed is quite relevant, and so is Korea. The difference between before high-speed rail and now. So I will not comment on China because it's continuous investment. It's planned by the state and they follow the decision. And it's very impressive, not only in the infrastructure, but also in the station and all the economical developments that goes around it, because bringing this mobility, bringing this station is also going along with a lot of development. In South of Korea, this is a much smaller country, but and there is some maturity in their network, but still they are expanding to double the infrastructure and to respond to the congestion of railway. So it's to a smaller extent, you know, in operation, but in preparation, they are really planning and developing to respond to this increase in the demand. Okay, this is all these corridors which are being developed all over the country. There is a good mapping, and wherever you go by train, because this is the most suitable, speedy, reliable response. Okay, let's go a little bit south. Indonesia. Again, it's a small country. It's an island. But you got a lot of congestion. This morning we were talking about the road congestion. Jakarta, they have decided to move the capital. This is rare, you know, in a country because of the congestion. They were unable to progress anymore. So the decision was taken to do this 88 miles high-speed line between Jakarta and Bandung. It's through a financial scheme, which is a concession, 80 years concession. The cost is roughly $5 billion US, and it's a joint venture between China, because this is the south of Asia, and a consortium involving Indonesian state-owned enterprise. So this is the start of a first line, and it's going to extend, you know, to the main city up to Surabaya. So this is a major step they're taking. Okay, another country also is Singapore, connecting to Malaysia. So we were talking this morning about economical development. This project is going to link Singapore, Kuala Lumpur to Singapore in 90 minutes. It's 220 miles. The speed is going to be 200 miles per hour. The line is going to be with 7 stations in Malaysia, so to support and to contribute to the economical development of Malaysia. So this project is similar to Eurostar, linking France and UK, you know, having a small portion of the connection being in Singapore and a longer portion in Malaysia. It's taking some, it's slow to develop. Well, everything is for political reason, but this line is going to be developed and it's going to go into place. It's quite impressive to see the support, the responsiveness of industry from all over the world to respond to this major project. From there, okay, Thailand, a little bit west, we have a project linking the 3 airports. This is called the Eastern Economic Corridor Development of Thailand, 136 miles with 9 stations. The speed is 155. This is supported by private investor, and it's going to be a 50-year operation, and from there it's going to be transferred to the state. So this project is not in operation; it's in development, but it's fully supported by the players in this country and also the industry, Japan and China, because this is next door for them. Okay, then next, India. India is also huge country, and they have taken the decision to implement high speed. They started with a first corridor in the most developed economically part of the country. It's linking Mumbai to Ahmedabad on the left. So this is the first link. It's elevated structure. It's roughly 300 miles. It's going to be in operation soon. The financing is coming almost fully from Japan. And the scheme from the government is to build a quadrilateral. They call it the Golden Quadrilateral. It's 3,025 miles to connect the major cities. In addition, they are improving the current network and to proceed what we call semi-high speed, which is 150 up to 200 miles. And the reason, and this is one point which was raised this morning, is that you must benefit from a network quickly. Don't rely only on the high speed, but also support the other rail activity so that you can have an effect of a network. And the rail becomes the solution to travel, sometime at a smaller speed, but at least you have connection and you have a network effect. Okay, Australia is also considering. This country is huge. It's a country of the plane, but to respond to the congestion, and because or thanks to the vision, the high-speed line is being developed, and ACTS legislation has been passed to proceed with this project linking Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, and Melbourne. So the travel time is going to be 3 hours between Sydney and Brisbane, and Sydney and Melbourne, and this is fully supported by the country. Okay, Middle East now. Currently, there is a small network. It's less than 1,000 miles, but plan are 2,000 miles, and it's the vision is supported by not only each state, but also by the Gulf Council countries area, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, and Kuwait. They group together to have one vision of integrated railway linking all these states, so that there is here also a network, a real network with their own and respective national railway network. So Turkey launched last month an high-speed network, and so are the other countries supporting a connection and to have a vision for this region of the world. Okay, Europe is much more developed. We could think the network is mature with 7,500 miles, but as you can see, there is more under development. Almost 2,000 is under construction, and almost 4,000 are planned and to be delivered. So the evolution of this network in Europe, you can see on the graph. We started by connecting major cities, and then connecting, state by state. The vision now is to connect Western Europe with Eastern Europe. So the European Union is funding and supporting the studies which bring jobs, which bring activity to the western part of Europe to build the Eastern network, Eastern Europe network, and this soon will be connected. So there is, in addition, still the willingness and the support to construct, to build a future HSR network in Europe over the 2 decades. And this is to respond, to the commitment to reduce the global warming taken by the European legislature. So it means a huge cost investment, but also contribution from the private as soon as the legislation is supporting and committing, the states are supporting the project, private funding is coming up. So the goal is to increase the market share of high speed compared to other mode, such as road, of course, but also air. And you must have heard of laws being passed to give a priority to high speed over air when there is a short distance over 2 hours. If rail exists, the preference would be given to rail. Okay, Africa, we talked this morning about Morocco. We held our conference there. Morocco is the first country in Africa who built their first line, but there is a vision for Africa. They have what is called the 2063 agenda, with all these major countries decided to build the vision of connecting the major city and connecting them to the ports and to enable an economical development of this country. So it's a long term, but they have this vision to develop and to call for funding, external funding, players, and we can see this willingness is coming up. So first, with this high-speed network in Morocco, the first line was connecting Tanger to Kenitra. It was very much criticized when it was announced, saying this country needs school, needs hospital. But now the country is saying we need an extension of this line. Why didn't you do this quicker? And they're calling for more. So currently under development, it's 250 miles to come to, in addition to this 125 existing miles going south, and then also going to Agadir with 150. What you can see on the right is that the country measure the economical development. High speed can be used, like in India, to connect economical area where there is the demand. So you respond by connecting a major city. On the other hand, you can use high-speed rail to develop a portion of the territory. That's the options that Morocco took. And this northern part around Tanger was not developed. And the beneficiary region of this high-speed line are expanding. This high-speed line is really a tool for economical development. I'd like to mention also and to congratulate my colleague from Deutsche Bahn. Egypt just got the contract of the world's 6th largest HSR system, in Egypt. It's a new line. It's going to link 60 cities across the country. So the speed is 143 miles per hour, but it's a huge project. With electrification of the network, which is going to reduce the carbon emission by 70%. And this is a major step, the second country in Africa moving forward with high speed. Okay, North and Latin America, maybe I'll stop here because I'd like to listen and possibly to complete my scheme. And for the next meeting, I'd like to mention progress under construction and plan, but I see that the ambition is there, the support is there, so I'm very eager to see what's going to be coming up. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So as I was saying earlier, we're way behind. The whole world is leaving us in the dust, and so hopefully after today, we're going to be catching up rapidly. I do want to mention also the big map that he showed of Europe and their long-term plan of extending another 40,000 miles. We have a video address from the EU at lunchtime today about that. So it'll be really interesting to see that. So I want to call up our next speaker. It's Armin Kick. He's Vice President of Locomotives and High-Speed Train Sets for Siemens Mobility. And I don't want to take too much time reading the bio, but I do want to thank Armin for many years of support for our association. When we were very small and brand new, Siemens was always there sponsoring events. They were members. They showed up at every single conference. They brought that big, beautiful train with them every time. So let's give Armin a round of applause for their thanks for that.
Well, thanks for having me back, Andy. I'm glad to be here. I didn't realize we took a 4-year hiatus from conferences, and I'm really happy to see people in 3D here. after seeing many on screens for a very long time. So it feels good. And it especially feels good to be in a room full of people that know high-speed rail, know of high-speed rail, know what high-speed rail can be, and are fighting for it. And that's what we do as well. So we are as fired up as we've always been about high-speed rail. And it looks like we're closer than ever. So with that, I put some thoughts together on what has happened since we last met, which is a long time ago. And I'm certainly glad to be back. So everybody in this room understands faster, more convenient, and better and a better experience is what high-speed rail is all about, and what really drives the economic equation in this as well. Before getting into the high-speed rail topic in more detail, I wanted to highlight one experiment that was done in Germany last year, which maybe people have picked up on, maybe not, but it is an interesting one because whenever you do an experiment, you know, you have to see how it turns out. So maybe you've heard about this. So as a response to high energy prices in Europe caused on the political situation that unfortunately has arisen, the Germans wanted to do something to give people money back in their pocket. And so they came up with this scheme for the summer, for June, July, and August, to actually allow people to buy a €9 ticket for all regional and city services in the entire country. And the naysayers were out there in full force saying, that's not going to work. Everything's going to be overloaded. Chaos will happen, all of that. And guess what? It was a slamming success. Actually was very, very popular. A fourth of the population actually bought a ticket. Yeah. So, and how does that relate to what we're doing here, or what this all could mean? Well, to me, it shows what can be done with political will. So Germany invested about €2.5 billion into this project. And it has helped people to actually, and it's also obviously a post-pandemic effect. And many of the respondents to surveys said this was the first time that they basically took a short vacation from home after the pandemic and actually got out again. And with that, it had some really interesting aspects, but it definitely helped move people from private cars to public transportation. And so with that, what's happening next? So because it was a success, the next edition of this program is coming, or is already here. So now the price has changed slightly, as you can see. But it's an opt-in program. You basically buy a monthly pass for all your regional services for €49, and you opt out at any time. And so it becomes more a membership scheme of taking public transit, which is very interesting because, you know, once you've accustomed to take your regional trains and your city services to get around, you're probably not going to go back home to get your car if you want to go a little farther, because now that plays into the overall transportation system. And as Philip mentioned, it's the network effect that counts also. So how does that relate back to high-speed rail? On high-speed rail, obviously some other aspects count, you know, travel time, the economics, cost. Most of these riders are riders by choice, right? They can have a car in their garage, they could buy a plane ticket, but they opt for high-speed rail most of the time because of time and the economics that come with this. And now, obviously, if you're already used to using your regional train service a lot, it fits into the overall equation to actually drive ridership on the longer intercity distances as well. So with that, the examples are plentiful of what happens when you implement high-speed rail. We've seen it across many countries and everywhere, and it's a proven you know, effect that you don't have to guess. If you bring your travel time down between origin and destination, your ridership on rail goes up dramatically, as you see on the right. Even if these distances are a little farther than what we usually talk to, so in the window of up to 3 hours, it's a slam dunk. rail always takes the prize. But even if you venture towards the 4-hour limit, there's still a lot of ridership that you can get. And as we discussed earlier in the program, it's not only about these two endpoints, it's about all the points in between that you now connect and that you give better services to. And that's obviously driving the ridership in a very, very significant way. So it's all about convenience, reliability, punctuality, and it's also about frequency. You know, high-speed rail is all about frequency. You do not worry about how long your meeting is going to take because you know there's a train an hour. And if your meeting doesn't end at 5, it ends at 6, there's no harm. You just get on the next train. So this is how this really can work. And this is how it also will work in America. It's not going to be any different here. We've talked about the economic effects of high-speed rail as well. Obviously, there's major benefits that were already mentioned this morning. Improves quality of life, strengthens the economy, creates jobs, is a very sustainable development, increases the mobility that's possible, and it transforms society. And it obviously also drives innovation. That's where we come in. We are the guys that want to drive innovation. We want to bring new things and make it much more convenient and provide a better travel experience. So looking out into the world, what's been going on? I mean, Philippe obviously already highlighted that there's a lot of development around the globe. So from a Siemens viewpoint, this is where our trains operate. They are globally deployed. The operational experience is obviously going up every year. And that happens in many, many countries. So in all of these countries also, that means you have to have a local footprint. And as it pertains to the US, Siemens has invested $3 billion in the last 4 years into the domestic market here. And that includes $400 million into manufacturing facilities. And that also supports our 2,000 suppliers that we have in around 40 states around the US. So now I want to highlight one example that Philippe also mentioned right before. And that's Egypt. So Egypt, about a year ago, a very large contract was signed that got Egypt on the map with high-speed rail in a very, very significant way. As you can appreciate, it's kind of hard to get around in Egypt. There's massive congestion. There's a lot of people in the urban areas, and it can take hours to get from point A to point B. And that is a real hindrance in developing a country and an economy. So Egypt is breaking out of this in a significant way by basically building a new additional network that integrates with the existing rail network, but they're putting down new lines, obviously increasing the speeds and creating capacity. Capacity is the name of the game in a country like this, because you have to move a lot of people. And that's where rail comes in. You know, you can move a lot of people with rail. So this project will reduce travel times. It's obviously good for the environment. It enables Egypt to actually grow. With that, trains should be running in 2027. So this is also a very fast-paced project. If we look at what that means, you see the new lines that are being drawn on this map. So the country gets connected. So it's a nation-building project again. There's 3 types of rolling stock that will run on these. So there will be true high-speed trains, there will be commuter trains, and there's going to be freight also operating on this network. It's about connecting this country. It's connecting for business, but it's also connecting for tourism. As you see, there's quite some tourist places on this map. And it's for speedy connections because, as I said, getting around, the greater urban areas today is very, very hard. And this will change that dramatically. So what does that all mean for the US? So what we're hoping for is that we can do something bigger and better in the US, like it's always been done. We think the US deserves the top of the line equipment and the top of the line high-speed rail. And it also deserves something that's not just a copy from somewhere else, but something that really stands out. So we think high-speed rail in America should have unparalleled comfort, should be forward-looking in terms of accessibility and other aspects, and really future-looking for what's next to come. We're not building this for today's riders. We're actually building this for the next generation, and we should take that into consideration. It's obvious that that comes with energy savings, environmental benefits, and so forth. So Siemens has done a couple firsts in the market. So first in modern electric locomotives here in the Northeast corridors, first with the Venture cars for Brightline in Florida. And if you have a chance, if you haven't ridden that system yet in Florida, I'd encourage you to do that. Line extends to Orlando very, very soon. And you can fly into Orlando and take it and see a different way of running an intercity passenger rail in America in a very, very nice and different way. And that's all I'm going to say. So you should try it out. So a couple of these firsts, and we think that amenities for specific markets should be tailored to what works there. We should also leave it up to the operators to actually determine what works best. And, you know, compare this to your middle seat on a commuter aircraft, or compare this to standing in the blistering heat on I-15, having forgotten to buy a drink at the last exit. All right, so we can make this a much more civilized scenario going forward. New ideas, new amenities, enhance the travel experience, and make work what works for the operator in that specific market. So obviously there's a technology piece that comes with all of this. We are here to push forward, to push for the latest, to push for latest technology, a step above what's known and in the market today. We think America deserves best, not just a copy from someplace else. And we want to be at that forefront to bring the new things to market. And these trains and concepts have been tested all the way to top speed as required and desired here in the US market. And we're ready to serve with this. Let's push forward. Let's get high-speed rail.
We agree with that. So now we have John from Alstom, who's going to give us their perspective and a lot of other systems that's being developed around the world. So please welcome. And I also want to thank Alstom for their longtime support as well of the association.
Thank you. Good morning, Andy. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And in normal times, Scott Sharon would be doing this presentation. Many of you know Scott. He couldn't be here today, so I have the privilege of presenting for Alstom today. It's also a privilege to share the panel with two other great technology companies, Philippe UIC, talking about the global market. So let me begin by talking just a little bit about Alstom. So Alstom, a true global company, 74,000 people working for Alstom around the world. We're doing business in 70 countries. We recently combined, it's been 2 years actually, with Bombardier Transportation, which has expanded the degree we can serve all markets around the world in the rail space. But while we are truly global, we are also intensely local. So in the United States, we have 4,500 employees. You can see we have a very robust customer base spread evenly all across the country. We have 17 sites in the US serving our customers. And with the combination with Bombardier, now well integrated, we are able to provide, again, full service to all segments of the rail market. We're number one in rail signaling. We've also increased substantially our position in the services business. We are actually number one as a private operator, both for airports. So if you've ridden on APMs, Good chance you're riding on Alstom technology. 14 APMs in the US are operated, and also the trains are manufactured by Alstom. We also serve 5 transit authorities as an operator. So let's talk about the market. So 2 points. What is the market telling us? What are we hearing from the market? And Armin and Siemens are hearing similar things. You know, as great technology companies, it's very easy for us to fall in love with our technology. It's speed, it's efficiency. But when you listen to what the market and what it wants, what it's really all about is the passenger and the passenger experience. The second thing that we're seeing, and this is reason for optimism, which is there's business case for high-speed rails. As Philippe said, there are systems all around the world and operators who are looking to advance high-speed rail systems, and that includes the United States. So there is business case, there's opportunity for return on investment for high-speed rail. I want to touch on 3 messages from the market now. So first of all, there's a tailwind. So there's reason for optimism, as I said. We're seeing increased demand for rail all around the world. We're also seeing politics in terms of green work in our direction. Yes, we are seeing green policies more aggressive in some places, Europe, for example, than others compared to the US. However, there are other pressure points which are coming to bear. And many companies and investment companies are seeing pressure from shareholders. They're seeing pressure coming from insurance companies. There are new pressure points. There's a tailwind for rail. Second, value for money. And I touched on it, business case for high-speed rail. And you're beginning to look at total cost of ownership of a high-speed rail system, not just looking at the front end capital cost, but what is the total cost of ownership as a system? Secondly, important point, what we're seeing is private operators coming into the market, competing against public operators. We're seeing it here in the US. Goes to my point. There are people who see there's opportunity for return on investment in high-speed rail. And then one of the themes that I'm going to keep coming back to is the theme of passenger experience. It's all about the passenger, and it's not just the train itself. Of course, you need to have the right experience in terms of seats and windows and all the other things that go into the experience any of us who have ridden on a high-speed train know, and that is so compelling. But beyond that, we need to think about connectivity, and the congressman talked about connecting city pairs. And what we know is if you have a city pair and you can connect that by rail, and you can get that rail moving people between in under 3 hours, you're going to take the majority of the market. You get it closer to 2 hours, you're going to kill all the other options. And that's what Amtrak did with the Northeast Corridor service. Those of us who've been in Washington a long time have some recollection of the day when there were flights out of National every hour going up to New York. Gone, dead, Amtrak killed it. So passenger experience is what's key. So one point to make directed at the US market, particularly in Europe, other markets too, there's an understanding that as much as we love high-speed trains, high-speed rail is a system. Can't just look at the train. And in fact, the train itself is itself a system. It's not just an individual passenger vehicle. The train is a system deeply integrated and synchronized with the signaling and communication system. In addition, there's been a number of discussions today about how it has to connect into existing networks. So existing rail networks, existing other networks of mobility. So it is a true system, can't just look at the train. And there are other complex systems that need to be considered, including the vehicle to track interfaces. This is something that's going to have to be addressed. So back to Alstom just a moment. So we have provided almost 3,000 high-speed trains to customers all around the world, 25 countries connecting 19 borders. We've been doing this for well over 40 years. We still hold the high-speed train record, the fastest train that's ever moved on a track. However, again, back to what I talked about, passenger experience. Speed is fantastic and it's important, but passenger experience, trip time, business case. So here is an example of some of our recent high-speed train contracts all around the world. What is unique about this slide is for the first time, we have a project in the US, and I want to talk a little bit more about this. So the train that Alstom is providing to Amtrak is Alstom's TGV technology, just the 5th generation of Alstom's high-speed technology. And there's a story behind this, and it is the story of a shared story with the US and France. So this is a cue to a video because it seems appropriate that we should see a high-speed train. This is Alstom's latest technology. It is the Alstom Horizon. It's the train that we are delivering for SNCF. It is also was jointly designed at the same time for the train that we are providing to Amtrak. So I'm looking to my friends in the back. Are we able to pull up the video? So while we're waiting, the slide that I had up showed the power cars for the Avelia Horizon, again, Alstom's 5th generation TGV technology, and the Avelia Liberty, which we are providing to Amtrak. And you will see dramatic similarities between the two because they were jointly conceived and designed. So there is Alstom's 5th generation TGV technology. So here's a timeline of the joint development, the US-French joint effort to develop the 5th generation of TGV technology. So the trains were jointly developed over the 2015-2016 timeframe, but you'll see a fork in the road when we got to the supply chain. So for Amtrak, Buy America supply chain. So we domesticated the supply chain for this train. The FRA requirement, of course, is 100% for intercity rail trains, 95% domestic content for this train. And meanwhile, over in France for the Avelia Horizon, that was a global supply chain. So common concept and design, separate supply chains. So how did we do it? It was really a Herculean effort. So what it was is a tech transfer of technology. There were 19 Alstom sites, 18 sites, are centers of excellence that transfer the technology, trained, designed the manufacturing line, developed the supply chain. It proves two things. One, Buy America works. Number two, it's not easy. So there were bumps in the road. There were challenges along the way. But nevertheless, we were able to transfer the technology, develop the supply chain, and deliver the train. So finally, this is the point that I made to the congressman. Just for this train alone for Amtrak, 170 suppliers in 27 states, $230 million of that supply chain went to small and disadvantaged business enterprises. So it's really a remarkable story of economic development, of the amount of economic lift that is created by high-speed projects. This is just the train piece. If you look at the whole system, it's really a very powerful story to tell. So to conclude, look, there's a tailwind for high-speed trains around the world. We have opportunities here in the US. We're excited to pursue those. We love our technology, but in the end, this is all about the passenger and providing the passenger experience. And yes, there's a business case for high-speed rail. Thank you.
All right, we have one last speaker and then we're going to be having lunch. So our last speaker is Alan Immel. He's the Turnkey Systems Business Development Lead for North America for Hitachi Rail, the other big rail manufacturer in the world. So please welcome Alan.
Thank you. Presentation coming up. There we go. There we go. So I'm right before lunch. Great. Well, I'll try and keep this high speed and maybe even a little bit interesting. My name's Alan Immel. I'm with Hitachi Rail, which was in Saldo, STS, and Union Switch and Signal, and lots of other things. And I'm here to talk about Hitachi Rail and high-speed trains. And one thing that occurred to me as I was putting this together, or maybe more than one thing, a couple things. One is that high-speed train and high-speed rail is a team sport. I mean, it's a team sport amongst a lot of different players, the civils, the designers, the federal government, private equity firms, so forth. But it's also a team sport amongst us. You know, we work for each other, with each other, sometimes compete against each other. By us, I mean Alstom and Siemens and Hitachi Rail. And that's because of one word I haven't heard yet today, and it's going to be key to the USA as well, interoperability. So interoperability allows us to deliver more efficient train systems, right? Because we have to compete against each other, whether we like it or not. So that was my epiphany, I guess, of the day. And something that we all need to think about. What are the standards and so forth? And there's a couple of great models to choose from. And we're involved with both. We'll start with the beginning, the Shinkansen. I couldn't start anywhere else but with the Shinkansen, right? Or the bullet train, as we like to know it here. Has anyone here ridden the Shinkansen? Anyone? I haven't. Is everything's cracked up to be? It's supposed to be very nice. And you can see the Shinkansen. The Shinkansen started here for the Tokyo World Fair, the Tokyo World Fair in 1964. Hitachi was a part of it. It was led by the Japanese Railways, of course. And you can see from that little center part there, you can see the dates. Maybe you can see the dates. I don't know. It's kept expanding, 72, 75, 2000, and it's still expanding even to this day. It's a great network, 11 lines. It's run by the Japanese railway companies. There's 5 of them. I think there's 61,000 cars. That may be a high number. That's something I picked up. Well, a factoid I picked up along the way. The latest version of the Shinkansen is the N700. This here shows it going 300 kilometers an hour. I think it's going to go up to 360 if I'm not mistaken. And then Hitachi Rail, along with other suppliers, provide vehicle suppliers for the Shinkansen is Hitachi Rail, Nippon Sharyo, Kinki Sharyo, Kawasaki, and J-Trek. So again, it provides a nice competition across the different networks here, but it's almost like a co-opetition. Because also Mitsubishi does train control, we do train control, and it's a very managed type network, and it's an extremely successful one. It's so successful, in fact, it has been exported to other companies. It's not just in Japan. There's Taiwan. Did someone mention the Taiwan line? Taiwan line, in fact, they're expanding that. I think it's what, a 200-mile line, if I'm not mistaken. And in fact, they're expanding and buying more vehicles for it. In addition, in India, the gentleman Philippe mentioned the Indian line, thank you, Mumbai to Ahmad. Yes. That's in the process of being built. I think it's supposed to be operation 2026 is what I believe, something like that. But it's all part of the plan. It's being built. And again, this is exported technology. And of course, next place we want to export it to is Texas. Houston to Dallas. It's coming. Just need a little money. So, but it's really exciting, really good tech. And it's a why. Why do people want the Shinkansen? Well, look at this. 55 years in operation, not one fatality. Look what does the speed time, the headways, 17 trains per hour, 44, almost 500,000 passengers a day. Runs on time, runs like a Swiss watch, I guess, or maybe a Japanese watch, I don't know. But, and most importantly, the green effect, right? Low carbon emission. So the Shinkansen is just an amazing train. It's an amazing story. And it's just one of the stories that we have, because then there is the other half of the story, which is the European high-speed rail network. You've heard all of us talk a little bit about it, but what enables a European high-speed rail network? It's really something called European Train Control System, right? Or ERTMS also, European Rail Train Management System. And really what that means is interoperability. Before interoperability, France had the TVM, which is part of their system, but it was driven so they could operate across the networks. And again, so Hitachi Rail, part of a consortium, I believe it also was in this one, where we delivered, and we're continuing to deliver the underlying networks that these trains run on. I think they've completed 4 projects. I think there's 2 more in the works, if I'm not mistaken. So again, the control systems are very important, obviously, and they're also very obviously state of the art. So that's Italy. I'm not going to dwell on a lot of these. I will talk about, of course, in France, Alstom was there, right? Our onboard is on their trains, if I'm not mistaken. It started originally as TVM technology, and now is I don't know if it's all converted to ETCS, but that was sort of the origins. And here's some of the projects that we're doing in the ERTMS world here. You can see the speeds and so forth. Sweden, another example of another line. ERTMS level 2. You can see the speed, the length, and so forth. And broadly, and Siemens and Alstom can put up the same map. This is a standard. In my mind, there's 2 standards around the world for controlling the trains. It's a Shinkansen and what they do, and the European standards. And this is what's going to make it successful in California. We need to have standards. It makes it more efficient. Make sense? Good. So, got to talk about train. And again, this is a collaboration too, full disclosure. The ETR 1000, one of the fastest trains in Europe, as I understand. It runs in Italy, of course, with Trenitalia and the European State Railroad System. It also runs in Spain with the Iryo, did I say that right? A private Spanish operator. It's been in operation since 2015. You can kind of see the style, very nice looking train. Latest generation, I'm told it's one of the fastest. Again, very exciting. Obviously, a Hitachi made train. Obviously a Hitachi made train. Next one. So I gotta talk a little bit about HS2. HS2 is the next generation of high-speed line they're building in the UK. And so what was HS1? Anyone know what HS1 was? HS1 got you to London. It got you from across the channel. That was, I believe, a TVM system initially. I'm not even sure who made the change, John, you might know. But so now they got, and it's great service. So, you know, a lot of expansion going on in the UK right now. They just opened the Elizabeth line. And this is part of their vision. HS2, high speed 2. Catchy name, huh? And you can see the phases. The first phase is under construction now. Contracts are being let. Phase 2, you can see they want to go all the way up to Manchester. And you get ideally Manchester, London, an hour and 21 minutes, hopefully 2023 service. Very exciting. This is, again, the next generation. I assume a lot of folks have ridden the European high-speed networks, yeah? Yeah. So very impressive. So cool. Who's ridden the channel? I've not. Yeah, nice ride. Yeah. So that's HS2, British High Speed Rail. And of course, we, along with our Alstom partners, I believe, are building the vehicles. We have the contract for it. They're going to be built in our plant in Newton Aycliffe, as well as Derby, with, I think, the train control sets coming from Crewe, if I'm not mistaken. And again, hopefully in service here soon. Very state of the art, 50% lighter. John, did I miss anything? I think these are the main points. Huh? Looking good, huh? Looking good. Very exciting train. Very exciting train. So the plug for ourselves, we have manufacturing plants around the world, as our competitors do, and we're ready to deliver. And we're very excited about what's happening with high-speed rail, and we feel like we're very well positioned to be a part of it. All right, so good news. We're on the big finish. I think I wrapped it up pretty quick. Yeah, maybe kept your attention a little bit. So all right, so here's the big finish. What do you need to know about very high-speed rail and Hitachi Rail? First of all, we've been part of very high-speed rail from its very beginnings in Tokyo and in Europe. I mean, it's in our DNA. Long time manufacturer of the Shinkansen train. I think I already touched on that. As I'm told, we're now on they were debating it. It's interesting, they're debating it. We're either on our 15th or 18th version of the Shinkansen train. I'm not sure. It's a lot. And I guess I should have mentioned we build those. Oh no, I'm going backwards. In our plants in Casado, and Mito. How about that one? All right. We also make the European trains, as I already mentioned. We provide train control for the European trains and other high-speed trains, the Japanese as well. And we provide train management systems, train network solutions, digital solutions. And we make the trains go. We make the trains, we make them go. And in two different solutions. And not to forget, we've been a part of the North American train. We were part of the beginning of the North America train market back in the 1880s, 1870s with George Westinghouse. We've been a part of this market for over 140 years, and we're very proud to be a part of the next generation of this market. And that's what that says. We're proud to be very part of that high-speed rail around the world, and we look forward to coming to the US. And it's such an exciting time. We got to make it happen. So I think with that, I'm done. And it's lunchtime.